The wind howled through the broken walls of Jerusalem, whistling like a mourning voice over the ruins. The city of David, once proud and fortified, lay in shambles, its gates scorched, its towers toppled, its stones scattered like forgotten memories. Years had passed since the exile, and though some had returned from Babylon, much of Jerusalem still lay wounded. Among those who had come back was a man named Bani, a Levite. His name was not great among warriors, nor was he wealthy or mighty by earthly standards. But Bani carried something deeper, a calling. He had served among the Levites, those dedicated to worship, to temple duties, to keeping the spiritual life of Israel alive. But in this season, the call was not to song, nor sacrifice, but to sweat and stone. Nehemiah had arrived in the city with a vision burning in his heart, to rebuild the broken walls. And Bani knew this was the moment to rise. When Nehemiah divided the work, he gave portions of the wall to different families, tribes, and clans. Some hesitated, some complained, but not Bani. Without ceremony or hesitation, he stepped forward and took his place along the ruined wall near the section of the Ophel, the hill that led up to the temple area. There, between the refuse and rubble, he laid his hands to work, not as a high priest or worship leader, but as a servant rebuilding the city of God. The sun beat down, scorching and relentless. Stones were heavy, and mortar was hard to come by. But Bani labored on. He called on fellow Levites, rallying them with the same fire Nehemiah kindled in all their hearts. He knew that if the wall stood again, so would the soul of the nation. Children watched him from nearby, eyes wide with wonder. "He is a Levite," one whispered, "yet he lays bricks like a builder." Another answered, "He worships not only with songs but with his hands." The days turned into weeks. Enemies threatened from all sides, Sanballat, Tobiah, and the others who hated the thought of a restored Jerusalem. But Bani and his brothers did not stop. By day they built, and by night they stood guard with swords at their sides. Bani would pray softly while placing each stone, his words rising with the dust of the wall, "Lord, remember us. Restore your people. Let this city once again be called yours." Nehemiah often walked the length of the wall to inspect the work. When he came to Bani's section, he saw more than construction, he saw devotion. Not every Levite had returned from exile, and not all were willing to get their hands dirty. But Bani had taken his sacred calling beyond the temple. He knew worship didn't end at the altar. Sometimes, it meant rebuilding a gate. Sometimes, it meant lifting another man's burden. And when the wall was finally completed, miraculously, in just 52 days, the trumpet sounded through the city. There was a celebration, a dedication. The people gathered on the restored walls, and songs rang out once again in Jerusalem. The Levites were called upon to lead the procession, to give thanks, to bless the city that had risen from dust. Bani stood among them. His robes were stained, his hands rough from labor, but his heart rejoiced. He had helped restore what was lost. Not just stone walls, but hope. Not just gates, but dignity. In the scroll of Nehemiah, his name is recorded, not as a great prophet, not as a warrior king, but as a faithful Levite who did not shy away when it was time to build. He reminds us that the work of God takes many forms, and that those who rebuild the ruins, stone by stone, are just as sacred as those who sing in the sanctuary. Bani's story is not often told. But in the eyes of heaven, his name is carved into the eternal memory of a people restored.